What's up, guys? This is Zach with Top Deck Nation coming at you today with another deck profile video. So if you haven't checked out our last ones, we have been covering a lot of Sun and Moon decks, so be sure to check those out. I'll link those in the description below or put some cards up or something. But today we're going to be looking at an expanded deck. So normally if you watch my videos, you know I don't do a whole lot of expanded just because I don't get to travel a lot. But this is a deck that's really seen a lot of hype. It's been played in Japan. I've seen it on some forums and some Facebook groups like Burbank City Gym and such. So I thought I would just kind of give my take on it. And that deck is going to be Seismitoad-Decidueye. So, you guys know already that I love Decidueye. It reminds me so much of, Greninja Break and Crobat. It's like a nice little mix between the two, kind of like a nice balance. And I've always liked Seismitoad as well. It's really annoying, it's disruptive, but it's so satisfying if you're the one who's actually playing it, right? So, combining those two together, and it's, really just a formula that just kind of works. I really like it a whole lot. And, it hasn't really seen a whole lot of play yet just because it's a really new deck, especially in the West. We didn't get the first Sun and Moon set up until, last weekend. And meanwhile, Japan's had it for I think a month and a half or a couple months now. So I just want to walk you guys through the deck, but the strategy is pretty simple here. You're item locking with Seismitoad, you're adding more and more damage with Decidueye, and yeah, I mean, the whole purpose of the deck is to just kind of, disrupt your opponent's hand and stuff and just kind of spread damage around. You're not so much focused around taking those one-hit knockouts or even those two-hit knockouts a lot of the times, but where so many trainers, so many decks revolve around trainers and item cards and things like that. A lot of times you can just kind of Lysandre something up that has 3 retreat or so it can't really get out of the active, and then you just start spreading damage around. So I mean, there's a lot of versatility with the deck, and I want to go ahead and walk you through this. So our main attacker here, of course, is going to be Seismitoad-EX. You either love it or hate it, I guess. It's the Quaking Punch King. It's item locking, and like I said, it's known for this Quaking Punch attack, and it kind of gained a sense of notoriety because it was just so annoying for players to go up against the last couple formats. So Quaking Punch does 30. Your opponent cannot play item cards, and that's really huge. I can't stress it enough. Just by looking right here, I'm just kind of estimating that we have probably a good 10, 15, maybe even 20 items here. So, I mean, it's a really big deal when you can't play those down. You're left with a lot of dead cards in your hand, and it just kind of makes your opponent, take that much longer to kind of get set up if they ever get set up. So that's why I like Seismitoad. We're not playing water energy in this deck, unlike a lot of builds with Golbat and Crobat. Instead, we're just going to be using grass energy because Decidueye is actually a nice little alternate attacker. You don't want to have to use it, but when you do, it's not bad. So, speaking of which, Decidueye, we've got a 4/4/4 line of Decidueye-GX. And Decidueye is not only an alternate attacker, the main reason we're playing it is going to be that ability called Feather Arrow. So once during your turn before you attack, you can put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. So that's really interesting. That means you can just put 20 damage anywhere. So, say I want to set up a knockout on a Shaymin. Well, let's go ahead and put 20 damage somewhere, or 40 or 60 on it or something. And then later in the game, if I already, can seal the game away with just a little bit of damage or something, I can Lysandre it up, and it really just sets up the math nicely. And it's also getting nice, cheap knockouts. So something like Night March, Seismitoad already has a pretty natural advantage against it just because of the item lock. But Decidueye brings it to a whole new level because Feather Arrow, I can put a couple 20 damages on a Joltik, a couple damage counters, knocking it out. I can set it for the cheap knockouts. I can stop them from even playing like Fighting Fury Belts or Puzzles of Time to get back their double colorless energies. So really, really versatile. Razor Leaf does 90. It's a nice clean amount. If you can Feather Arrow once or twice during your turn, it's pretty much two-shotting anything. And then lastly, we have Hollow Hunt GX, and I like this GX attack a lot. Put 3 cards in your discard into your hand. So, any of these effects, anytime you have those effects where you get cards out of your discard, it's going to be inherently strong. I mean, if you look back in the Heart Gold format or so, everybody was playing 3, maybe even 4 Junk Arm. And then you have Dowsy Machine, which was an A spec. Sableye, of course, Sableye Garbodor, still a thing and expanded. It uses that Junk Hunt attack. So, that deck strategy revolves just completely around reusing your resources. So that's a really strong card, and 240 HP is ridiculous But, the biggest reason it works so well is because of Forest the Giant Plants. This is similar to Broken Time Space, if you guys remember back in like the Diamond Pearl days. But this card lets you kind of bypass the evolution rule. Forest the Giant Plants, it lets you evolve your grass Pokemon the turn they played them, or the very first turn. So that is ridiculous. And you can really set up some nice combos. For example, let's say you do your 20 damage with your Decidueye, and then you play AZ. Well, you can scoop everything up and re-evolve it again the same turn and use the effect again. So really, really strong here. And then, of course, we play 2 Shaymin just to get set up. So that's pretty much the Pokemon line. Really simple. Like I said, you're attacking with Seismitoad, item locking, and then just putting a bunch of damage on the board with Decidueye. So as far as our supporters go, we're going to have 4 Professor Sycamore, pretty standard. Probably the best supporter in the game by far. We're going to play 3 in. 2 in probably does the job, but, we want to have that extra sense of consistency. We want to make sure that we don't have to discard our Decidueyes and stuff if we don't want to. So a nice shuffle and draw 6 early on is really strong. And then late game, of course, really good too. Lysandre, we're going to play 2 of those. 2 is pretty standard for the most part. You could probably cut down to 1 just because you do have the factor of being able to spread damage around. But I like 2 just in case it's prized. So, Lysandre is really good with this deck, especially because of Decidueye. The math works really well. So, for example, I can put 20 on Shaymin. Next turn, I can bring it up and finish it off with Razor Leaf. So, works really well. We have Hex-Maniac. Hex-Maniac is great for the mirror match. So with the mirror match, you're going to have a bit more of an advantage if, you can spread this damage around, but they can't. But, the main reason I put Hex-Maniac in here is because Archeops is a big, big factor in Expanded. So if you haven't checked it out already, you can check out all the event results from different tournaments and regionals and such on Pokemon.com. And, if you look at the expanded tournaments, the ones that are always making top 8, the decks, they're always these dark variants, these Yveltal Darkrai variants that, they have so much room in them and just so much consistency overall that they're squeezing so many cards in it. So, you see battle compressors, you see Jirachi to get the Maxi's hidden ball trick. You see Archeops and Gallade. It's kind of ridiculous how strong it is. So, if you don't play Hex-Maniac, you're already in trouble against that deck because if they go first, chances are Archeops is coming down. And the only way you can really combat that is with a Hex-Maniac. So you want to make sure you play that just in case. We're playing Colress because, Colress lets us have potential to get these massive, massive hands. So if your opponent has 5 bench Pokemon, we have 5 bench Pokemon, we're drawing 10 cards. And that's really good because chances are you're going to be drawing, entire evolution lines of Decidueye, and being able to just play those down right away is really strong. And then lastly, I explained AZ before, it's a healing card, lets you scoop things up that are damaged. It's kind of like a switch card, if you're stuck in the active, like with Fright Night Yveltal can kind of stick you in the active with that ability. You can scoop it up that way. And you can also reuse Decidueye's ability. So overall, really strong. And of course, that means our stadium has to be Forest of Giant Plants. We're playing 4 of that. We want to get that in our opening hand. And then as far as our items go, of course, we have, pretty standard items here. We've got 4 Verse Seeker, so we can reuse our supporters. Ultra Ball lets us search out any Pokemon on the deck, so really strong. Trainers Mail lets us make sure we get things like supporters early on and Forest of Giant Plants. So really good card. I think, it's a must-have in here, maybe even a 4 of, but, the deck is just really tight, but I do think it's consistent as is. Super Rod is good just to get back your basic energy, and you can get back a Decidueye line or Shaymin or Seismitoad that were discarded due to Parallel City or something. So really versatile card. Scoop up Cyclone. I like this card because it's a bit of a compromise for me. So when I originally made the deck, I thought to myself, you have to play this with Super Scoop Up. This is easily, one of the best cards that pairs up with Seismitoad. You can just scoop it up and item lock every turn. You can reuse Decidueyes. But, the more I tested it, it was kind of inconsistent because, anytime you're dealing with flip cards, you're only going to get them half the time, right? So, you may get 2 super scoop up flips on average, and that's just not, just not great when I can take those cards out and use like, a 4th Forest of Giant Plants, or an extra Trainers Mail or energy or something. So Scoop Up Cyclone, it was between this and Computer Search, but I like this because the effect is just really, really strong here. One Revitalizer just to get back our grass Pokemon here. So our Decidueye, anytime we have to discard, burn through the deck or it's knocked out, we can get them back. 2 Level Ball just because it searches out Rowlet and Dartrix. So that's half our deck, half our Pokemon. So being able to get those set up really early is strong. And then our last 2 cards, I think we have Floatstone. That's just to kind of retreat out. Decidueye, you don't want to have to keep discarding DCEs or digging for the AZ. Get a Floatstone out. That way, if something gets knocked out, you can have free retreat right away. And then lastly, Battle Compressor. So, this last spot in the deck, I didn't really know what to do with it. We could do a 4th Grass Energy. I've seen a lot of people try to play Tauros with the deck or Ninja Boy, things like that. But I think Battle Compressor works just in general because it's adding a sense of consistency. We play a lot of 1-of supporters. We play a lot of 1-of cards. Later game, we don't want so many Forest of Giant Plants in our deck. And, there's also the kind of gimmick where you can Battle Compress, Rowlet, Dartrix, and Decidueye, and then just Revitalizer back into your hand. So I think Battle Compressor is really strong on this deck. And, as far as our energy go, we play 4 DCE and 3 grass energies. So I don't think I left anything out here. Xerosic, I think I did leave that out. Xerosic's just there because of Garbodor. If I had another spot in the deck, I'd probably play something like Tool Scrapper. So you can't get like Headringered or something, and just to kind of have a quicker out to Garbodor. But Xerosic pretty much does the job. So that is going to be the list, guys. I like it a lot. It's really fun. It's just a blast to play. Anything where you can kind of spread damage around. It's almost like you're getting to attack multiple times a turn. Really fun. But let's go ahead and jump into a game I recently played on Pokemon Trading Card Game Online, and that way I can show you how the deck works. All right, guys, looks like we're going to see if our opponent goes first or not. It looks like they will. So we're going to hopefully get set up here. I'd like to get maybe 1 Decidueye out, maybe 2, on the first turn, but usually 1 is pretty doable. So it looks like we're going to mulligan here, and I see a Forest of Giant Plants and a Yanmega. So it looks like not quite a mirror match, but it looks like they are going to be playing Forest of Giant Plants. So hopefully, maybe we can get ours out really quick and discard the rest of ours. So that way our opponent just has some dead cards in their hand. Otherwise, that might happen to us. We might have, a few dead cards in our deck as well. And it looks like I'm just mulliganing like crazy here. I think that was like 3 already. So okay, there we go. So this start isn't too bad. I hate that I have to discard the Scoop Up Cyclone already, but it looks like I've got a couple Rowlets, so that's pretty good. Floatstone, so I should have free retreat, and a Sycamore. So I mean, I'm pretty good right now. And it looks like our opponent is going to go ahead and use an Ultra Ball. They're kind of searching out for something, and we see a Kingdra. Okay, so I'm not sure what this deck is at all. I've seen this deck played with like Vespiquen or something like that, maybe even like a Zebstrika, but Kingdra is very weird. Kingdra, I think for 1 energy it does 30, and then it discards a Stadium, maybe 20. And then the other attack, I think it's for 4 energy, and it's like, it does more damage for each lightning energy that's on Kingdra. So a very odd deck. I'm trying to wonder, what he's trying to counter with Kingdra, or if maybe, that's just the only attacker he really has right now. It's really, really hard to say for sure. But I'm going to go ahead and attach the Floatstone and just go ahead and retreat out. So there we go. We get a Dartrix and a Decidueye, so that's pretty good. We can go ahead and get that set up. And we have a DCE, so next turn we can probably pull off an attack here. But I'm going to go ahead and use Feather Arrow and put 20 somewhere. I'm going to put it on the active because that actually sets up for a knockout. I think Yanmega has 110 HP, so, just enough. And I think I'm going to opt to retreat out here. So maybe this wasn't the best decision in the world, but I really did not want Decidueye damaged already, considering I didn't really have much of a start here. I don't have, Seismitoad's out. I don't have multiple Decidueye. So, if that DCE is knocked off or I'm damaged or something, it puts me in a weird position. So I think that's why I retreated to Rowlet. But looking back, you never know. But Yanmega, if Yanmega is, known for that ability that lets it attack for free if you have 4 cards in your hand. So basically, if he can get down to 4 cards, I think he does like 120 damage or something, if I have a tool on me anyway. So interestingly, I don't see any Shaymins out here, so pretty clever of my opponent, or maybe just doesn't have Shaymins. I don't know. I see a Remoraid, so we might see an Octillery, but I'm going to play Level Ball. I'm going to get Dartrix out, and hopefully that means I'm going to get 2 Decidueye already on the second turn, so that's really strong. And I'll probably just play in because I need other stuff as well. I could use a Grass Energy. I could use some, anything really. So I'm going to Trainers Mail. I don't know what to go for. If I Level Ball, I can probably go for another Rowlet. But if I Ultra Ball, I can go for like a Seismitoad. And, keep in mind, Seismitoad may not even be a great attacker in this matchup. I mean, it's not bad against Kingdra, but Yanmega is a different story, especially if they're playing something like Headringers. Thankfully, I don't really play any tools in the deck besides Floatstone. If I had some extra space in the deck, I'd love to play a couple Muscle Bands. So that is an option if you want to take out like the third in or the Battle Compressor or something like that. But, a lot of times you just don't need it. Decidueye adds that extra bump in power, and I really like it a lot. But I'm going to retreat out. I found the Grass Energy, so now I'm just going to go ahead and spread some damage around. And I'm going to go ahead and hit with the Razor Leaf attack. I think that's what it's called. And as you can see, I put the damage on Kingdra because I think those are really the threats. I mean, if Yanmega tries to hit me, I can go ahead and knock it out. But I need to set up those knockouts just in case. If I get 80 damage on Kingdra, that should be a knockout, a pretty clean knockout at that. So Decidueye is going to knock out Yanmega. I'm going to get a prize. And looks like I get a Dartrix, so that's good. So really the name of the game here is going to be, let's try to get out as many Decidueyes as possible. 3 is really the magic number in my opinion. If you get 3 Decidueye out, you've got a couple Seismitoad and a Shaymin. That's really my ideal board. I mean, if you can really get 4 Decidueye out without having to use Shaymin setup, then go for it, but it's almost impossible. You need Shaymin to draw some cards. And he ends me down to 5. This is actually a pretty good hand. I think I can Battle Compressor, Dartrix, and Decidueye out of the deck and then use Revitalizer to get those back. So kind of a gimmicky play, and I like that. Battle Compressor is really versatile in this deck. And Decidueye is actually already in the discard, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to get Dartrix out and a couple supporters more than likely. And let's see here. It looks like actually, there's 3 Forest of Giant Plants left in the deck. I might as well just go ahead and, get rid of those. So I'm going to go ahead and Battle Compress the Forest of Giant Plants. I think it's a better decision. And I'll go ahead and Revitalizer. The Decidueye gets me a 3rd one out. So, the deck doesn't have issues getting them out. I mean, it's really simple to do. And I think Forest of Giant Plants really just kind of facilitates that. I mean, if that stadium didn't exist in standard then, or in expanded, I should say, then this deck probably wouldn't exist. I mean, it's really hard to get out, and you might just want to play Golbat or Crobat because they're a little bit quicker. Golbat gives you that immediate effect. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and spread some more damage around. I think I can actually get a knockout on Kingdra because I'm doing 60 damage, just kind of spreading with Feather Arrow. So I think I'm doing enough damage here, and I'm going to Level Ball just for the heck of things. Maybe I should have gotten the Rowlet out, but really I Level Balled because I'm going down to 3 prizes here, and at this point I have a pretty massive hand. I think I've got 9-10 cards in my hand, so an N is probably going to be on the way, especially since they still have 6 prizes. And there we go. So it doesn't really hurt me a whole lot. If I am ever in a horrible circumstance where I'm down to like 1 card, I can just use the GX attack and get exactly what I need here. So I'm curious if he's going to try to thin his hand down to 4 so that we can attack with Yanmega. And that Kingdra is just loaded with energy, and it looks like he retreats and attacks. So he does 150, really solid attack. I'm down to 70 HP, so I'm probably going to be retreating this turn. but it's hard to say for sure. And I'm just trying to see what options would be best here, but I think I'm going to use Chorus. I'm going to Chorus for 8. That's a lot of cards. And looks like I get a lot of good stuff here. Decidueye already had a Grass Energy on the bench, so I'm going to retreat out, and I think that's just enough damage. So like I said, it's all about just kind of, knowing what the math is, those magic numbers. I put 20 on Kingdra the first couple turns, and now that 20 damage is kind of rewarding me. It's coming back and letting me get that knockout. So I'm going to go down to 1 prize, and we may see an end to 1, but like I said, Decidueye does have that GX attack, so hopefully I won't get end down to 1, but if I do, it shouldn't be too terrible. And, I don't know what he's going to be doing at this point. If he can get down to 4 cards, that's great. I guess he can attack me for 50 damage, but, Kingdra is going to take a while to get set up. I can just kind of knock out whatever is in his path. So, all right, we see an end of 1, and I don't really get much, but at the moment I've got the game because I can put, I can spread damage around to the Remoraid. I can spread a little bit to the Yanmega, and there we go. Our opponent's going to concede because they realize that, that's going to be the case. So, the deck is just so much fun, guys. It's a blast to play. It's really exciting to see all of these Sun and Moon strategies just come out. They're really going to change the game for the better, I think. They're going to slow the game down a little bit in Standard, but provide a lot of awesome effects. But, let me know in the comments if you guys liked it. Let me know what kind of changes you would make. And be sure to subscribe, show your support, check out the other videos, and check out the facebook.com/TopDeckNation group. But in the meantime, this has been Zach with Top Deck Nation. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video.